minutes, ladies and gentlemen. One minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is the Williamson, Inc. Town Hall meeting. We appreciate all the folks that are with us here at Columbia State Community College this morning, and there are many more we know on TV Channel 3 and WAKM this morning. We're glad to have all of you. Our guest this morning is Tennessee Commissioner of Transportation, John Schroer.
Good morning.
Good morning, John. We're glad to have you with us this morning. John, formerly Mayor of Franklin, Chairman of the Franklin Special School District Board for several years. 11. Didn't know it was that long.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having so much fun.
Something like that, yeah.
Great. Father of 3.
Correct.
And husband of Mary Ann. And now we have a grandson, I
have a 5-year-old grandson, yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
He's a pain, but other than that. Aren't 5-year-olds all that way?
5-year-olds are busy.
They're busy, yeah.
A lot of fun, though. The one thing when I was doing a little homework for this program this morning, and by the way, they say I'm getting cool points for getting out from behind the podium this morning, but if I fall off this chair, just go with the flow, folks, because
well, I've seen you fall off a chair, but it's been late at night when you but
watch
not this early in the morning.
I won't tell if you want.
I'm really hard to interview sometimes.
You don't go where you're supposed to.
Never. That's Matt Barnes. He's in the audience. He used to work for me for a long time.
Always interesting, though. You're now president of the American Association of, to simplify it, DOT commissioners.
That's correct.
That's correct. How long has that been?
Well, just for, I was sworn in September, and it's just a year term, so it's not a long-term process. But I had served, AASHTO is our organization that represents all the DOTs. There's actually 52 of them. There's only 50 states, but Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. are part of that program. And then there are non-DOT related entities that are members, but they're not voting members of the board. So the board are just the 52 CEOs across the state, across the nation. And they do, it's an important organization. They do a lot of design work, recommendations. They work close with FHWA on developing guidelines for FHWA in conjunction
Who is FHWA?
Federal Highways Administration,
okay,
which is part of the U.S. DOT. FHWA is who holds our money that we send up to them and then distributes it back with strings attached to it. But that's right, the Federal Highways responsibility. But so AASHTO does a lot of that stuff. We also develop a lot of software packages for the DOTs across the nation. It's running a DOT is kind of a unique operation, and there's 52 of them, and so consequently, you don't have a whole lot of companies developing softwares for 52 companies, and in most cases, the states don't have the wherewithal to develop complicated software that we need to use for managing projects and contracts and grants, and we do a lot of that stuff. So AASHTO actually develops a whole lot of software being used by the DOTs. And then also we do a lobbying effort in Washington for funding and stuff for federal highways, federal transit, the federal aviation, and all of those things are part of the stuff that we do. So I'm honored to be. I was elected by my peers and have serving a term at that. So
quite an honor.
Yes, it is an honor. Yeah,
that's great. You've been TDOT commissioner now for 7 years.
7 years and 6 months and 20 days, 22 days. Who's counting?
But who's counting? The governor has picked you. Why do you think he picked the mayor of Franklin?
So a couple of people here know me pretty well, and they also, I have a chief of staff, and her name's Lindsay Botts, and her job, quite frankly, is to try to keep me in the road instead of bouncing off the road, and I have a hard time sometimes doing that. But anyway, we were sitting with the governor one time, and she asked the governor that specific question, and there were just the three of us, and we'd finished a meeting. And she goes, Governor, I've always wanted to know, why did you pick him as Commissioner of Transportation? And he leaned back in his chair and he goes, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. True story. And we got up and left. To be slightly serious, the governor, I wasn't involved really in his campaign. I mean, I supported him early, even in the primary, because I did my research and as we all should do, and I looked at the three gubernatorial candidates at the time, and the Republican. In fact, there really were only Republican gubernatorial candidates, and when I looked at the qualifications, we had Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, good man. He did a great job as Lieutenant Governor, and Zach Wamp, who was a U.S. representative. I didn't know Zach very well. Smart, creative man, and then Bill Haslam, who was the mayor of Knoxville. And when I did my research, I just decided that I really wanted somebody. First of all, he and his brothers and father run a pretty decent-sized business, or did. He did a great job in Knoxville, and maintaining, bringing that city into a strong financial position. Right. And they increased their credit rating and all sorts of good stuff. And I was a mayor, and mayors like mayors, and so I supported him. And then he decided somewhere along the line that he really wanted a mayor to run his Department of Transportation.
Really?
And he said that early. And as I travel around the state, I understand that, because mayors understand roads probably more than anybody else, because they hear about them all the time.
Right.
And there's a saying in our business that all roads are local. And there's some truth to that as well. And so he said, I just really wanted a mayor to do it, and I guess I convinced him I was the right one. I don't know.
Must have.
So I will tell you a quick story, since we got a whole hour. I love hours. So
I've got 2 hours worth of material
here. I can just go. And Matt Barnes has heard this. We call them parallel tangents. So you got to think about that for a while. But we go off on parallel tangents often. But when I was talking to the governor, he asked me to come down. It was interesting that it happened on a Tuesday night before an alderman meeting, actually, and I got a call before our work session that starts at 5, or that's when I start, and it was from Tom Ingram, and it was right before. It was the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact, and we all trying to get out and start the holiday weekend. As Tom Ingram said, the governor-elect would like to talk to you. And that's all I said. I said, well, of course you don't say, nah, I don't want to talk to him. But, so I said, well, sure, okay. He said, when? He said, tomorrow morning at 7:30. And I said, well, okay. So, so I went there at 7:30, how early that is. And so I'd met him, but I knew Tom Ingram a little bit, but I talked to a couple other people, and then talked to the governor, and the governor asked me to come back. And like 2 or 3 days later, when we started talking, he said, "So your name has been brought up for the 3 possible cabinet positions." And he had gone around the state and done some focus groups with business leaders and other people, and had people come in, and they had all the cabinet positions on a wall, and they would ask people to go put names up on who they might think might be appropriate for certain cabinet positions. And actually my name appeared on 3, which I thought was interesting. One was education. Of course, I'd spent a long time in education.
Right.
The second one was economic development, and as mayor of Franklin, we did a lot of economic development. We were real involved in that stuff, and right. Matt Larson, we knew all those things were going on. And then the final one was TDOT, which was really kind of interesting to me because I didn't know crap about roads. And
you'd built a few as a developer.
I've built a few as a developer, and was involved in stuff as roads in Franklin. And I was also on the MPO. None of y'all know what the MPO is, but as mayor, you're on the MPO, which is a regional planning thing that's federally funded and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, and so I told him early on, so I don't want to be the commissioner of education. That was a pretty smart choice, wasn't it? And I said, because you need someone who's been in a classroom. I've never been in a classroom, and that's what you need. And he certainly concurred with that. And then he said, well, what? He said, so your name's come up as economic development and TDOT. And he said, so what would you like to do? Which is an honor to be asked, that way. And I said, well, I'm a commercial real estate developer. I mean, I convinced businesses to move in the real estate that I own, move their businesses there, whether it's retail or office. Did it as mayor. And I said, I think I'd love to be the economic development commissioner. He goes, well, great, but I want you to run TDOT. So, well, why'd you ask me then? So I said, yeah, okay.
Great story.
It was a good story.
Great story. What surprised you most about the job?
Well, first of all, how little I knew about what TDOT did. I remember Paul Deggs is our chief engineer and has been around for 30 years and very well respected across the country for what he's done at TDOT and other things. And for the first 3 or 4 months, well, 2 things would happen. Well, I would always ask him, and I would always say, we do that? It's amazing what TDOT does. Mm-hmm. And I just thought we built roads and bridges. We do a whole lot of other stuff.
Right.
And then the other thing, which was real interesting, is that I would ask him often, say, well, who makes that decision? Because as a mayor, we have a very weak mayor position, and you can't hardly even sign your name to a letter without the board mayor and alderman telling you it's okay to do that. You certainly cannot. Well, in fact, we had some issues with the previous mayor who would commit for the city and wasn't allowed to do that. So you can't do that, and so you have to, and you have to go through 3 readings, and you have to do all the things you need to do, and I didn't know how state government worked. I've never done that, and I said, so who makes that decision? And Paul Deggs said, well, you do, Commissioner. and I said, you mean just like that? And he said, well, yeah, so like I can change policy. Stroke of a pen. Don't have to ask anybody. Don't have to do anything. I can build roads. I don't have to ask anybody to build roads. I mean, so the commissioner of transportation and the governor said that as we were talking is probably as powerful as any position in state government because they're given a whole lot of autonomy to make decisions, and as it should be. Otherwise, we'd be bogged down forever. And it takes long enough to build a road right now,
right.
And we don't need more restrictions.
So you let contracts for, I think, $300 and some odd million worth of roads in December.
340, something like that.
And you're the one that decided which ones got built?
Yeah, pretty much.
On the 3-year plan?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Unless you don't like it, and then some other people made that decision.
Now,
let me back
So
up
the
with that.
governor doesn't tell
what-
you, we need
Okay.
that guy to vote for this, so you need to build that road.
You know, and I'm going to say this with great respect and some kind of being almost in awe of that. Not one time in 7.5 years has Governor Haslam ever told me to build something for somebody.
Never.
Never, ever.
Interesting.
And really never to do anything for anybody.
So has politics and what you know about the political situation ever influenced you?
Not me. Does a lot of people. But there's some people in the legislature don't like me because of that. And when I first got on somebody, I was in I'm so not influenced by that I don't pay attention a lot to it. But I was in second or third year, I was in a legislator's office, and in all honesty, I don't even remember which one it was. But we got a bunch of them, and so I try to forget most of them, except for Sam, who does a great job. but he had all his constituents, and he was trying to convinced me to build a road, and it was not really a road that was really needed. And he said to me, and in the room of constituents actually, he said, well, I've always voted Republican. I'm a real strong Republican. We've got a Republican governor, and we need to build this road. And I said, that doesn't mean anything to me. And of course, that didn't go over very good. And I said, I've never seen an R or D on a casket.
So.
And we haven't.
You're saying safety is
Safety is number one.
Number one?
Always.
So we're statewide.
We go to funerals.
Yeah.
And we see, so I have a job that I get notified of every fatality on every state road every day. And we last year had over 1,000 fatalities. So you do the math. So on average, 3 times a day, I get notification of a fatality on one of our roads. And when you're in this job long enough, and this may be egotistical, I don't want to be, but they become my roads. Those are my roads. And I know that sounds kind of bad, but they just are.
Yeah.
And I drive them a lot. I look at them. I hit the potholes. I get bitched at all the time about stuff. And so they have to be mine because people are holding me responsible for them. So they must be mine. And so when someone dies on my road, I pay attention to it. And I relate it to all of y'all that have a house. And if you live in a house and someone ran off the road into your house and hit a tree and died, you'd be devastated. Now, you had nothing to do with that, but they died hitting a tree that you owned, and you knew about it. And, deaths are great if we don't know about them, because it happens all the time. Well, yeah. But when you know about them, it means something. And so, so when I look at those all the time, and I see the backstories, and I see pictures, and there's nothing else matters, quite frankly, and that's what we look at.
Interesting. So one of the other unique things about Tennessee is that we don't borrow money to build roads. Tennessee could probably borrow another $100 billion.
Like everybody, when you need money, you can't borrow money. When you don't need money, you got bankers saying, "Hey, you want to borrow money?"
Yeah.
No, I don't need to. So yeah, we could borrow lots of money. We're AAA rated credit.
See Kent Starwalt out here. He's the president, I believe, of the Tennessee Road Builders. And I've always thought that the TDOT commissioner and the president of Tennessee Road Builders would want us to borrow money and build more roads faster. Why not?
Well, you got to pay it back.
Okay.
So.
But you get to drive on them while you're paying it back.
Okay, so sure, yeah. So a lot of us, most of us, could borrow money to build a really, 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 really big house. And it could have everything we want in it. Everything. Be great. Be fabulous. Bankers be willing to pay you, to give you the money to do it. And then, daggone, that first month you got to write that mortgage payment. Mm-hmm. And then you realize, oh, crap, I really maybe didn't want to do that. And so here's the other thing. And it's, we've got a guy up the road that talks a lot about borrowing money, Ramsey, mm-hmm. that has that kind of radio show. Now personally, I don't pay any attention to that stuff, but I'm a real estate developer by trade. You have to, I had a partner one time who said, there's nothing too good for the fully leveraged. True story. You got to think about that for a while. You think about it, going, yeah. And and I'll be all honest, I lived that life. I had, a lot of you know my story, and I am still a commercial real estate developer, and in the late 80s, I built Williamson Square Shopping Center, I built Forest Crossing over here, had offices in Atlanta and in Memphis, and we had a bunch of stuff. I had about $90 million worth of work under construction personally, in my development company, and the real estate market crashed.
Didn't work out well.
Didn't work out well. Well, it worked out great, because that's why I'm sitting here today.
Awesome.
And there's a story behind that, and I won't mess you with that. But I learned a lot of lessons, and the lessons is being fully leveraged may not be the greatest thing in the world. But when you listen to the Ramsey story, what he tries to do is get you to pay your house off. He wants you to be without debt. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to be a commercial real estate developer without debt, because you don't normally have millions and millions of dollars sitting around you put in a shopping center. But you want to put some cash in it, use some leverage, and leverage can be a good thing if used wisely. But in the Ramsey theory, once you get out of debt, you stay out of debt. But it's hard to get out of debt, but mm-hmm. once you're there, it's pretty great. Yeah. It really is. And so the way I look at it, the state, we're out of debt. Mm-hmm. Okay, front of the road thing. And we're doing pretty good. Our roads are often ranked in second or third best in the nation. Right. And other states that don't have debt are in the 20th or 21st. And we're a fix-it first state. We're about the 17th largest from a department size across the country. Our volumes are about the 17th largest in the country, and we're the only one that's doing it without debt. And we're able to manage that. Now, it's not always easy, and we have to do some pretty tough cash management stuff. And there's a bunch of stories behind that as well. But we're there now. And there may be a time where it's right to do that. But the other thing, and Kent will understand this, and whether he agrees with it or not, he understands it. And that's the importance of disagreement. You can disagree, as long as you understand each other, that doesn't mean, then you at least understand where they're coming from. Instead of your children saying, just because I said so, that doesn't work either. But when you borrow money, you get an inflush of cash, right? So the state could go out tomorrow, it'd take longer than that, but we could borrow $2 billion and apply that to all the projects that we got passed in the Approve Act and maybe some other things that are out there. $2 billion. Well, here's what would happen. You don't sit on that $2 billion. You want to spend that $2 billion, right? So we build roads faster. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, a couple things. It means that I've got to beef up my staff. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I'm building $2 billion worth of stuff. I got to go to the road builders, and I got to say, road builders, all of a sudden, we're doubling our capacity. And they're going to say, we don't have the capacity to do that. And so what that means is then I start bringing in a whole lot of other contractors from other states that start bidding on work. And the cost of the work goes up significantly because we don't have the capacity internally in the state of Tennessee to handle that kind of work. And then once they build up capacity and the state builds their staff up and we hire consultants, well, they love that work, but then they staff up so they can do all that kind of good stuff. But once that money runs out, it runs out. Right. Okay? Right. So then all of a sudden you go, then your volume's down here. Right. Well, then you fire people. And then all the people in Kent's business who bought road graders and equipment and hired people, they gotta do something. Then it all changes, and so it's not really a good position to be in, and it's volatile. And one thing we talked about, and Kent and his organization was so strong behind the Improve Act, and they weren't saying borrow money to do stuff. What they said, and we said it as well, we need long-term sustainable funding. And when I talked to the road bills right after that, I said, okay, folks, we got that. Now it's your obligation. We have this much money forever now. Mm-hmm. And so now you need to beef up your staff to handle the volume of work that we're going to be doing. We're going to increase it. But we're guaranteed to have this much money now. And so you can take the risk of borrowing money to buy more equipment and to do things that you do, because you know, and you're comfortable in it, that we're going to have that much construction going on for the future. Right. And it is really the best way, it absolutely is the best way to do that. So we're there now. Why would we do something else? If you own your house, why would you go borrow money on it? That would be dumb. So it would be dumb for us to go someplace else.
So you spent, the best part of 2 years traveling around the state with the governor, talking to local officials about what they wanted and putting together a plan, which is now called the Improve Act, and getting that plan through the state legislature. What has that accomplished? What does the Improve Act do? And
well,
first of all, it raised the gas tax and the diesel tax by how much?
6 cents and 7 cents, I think. 10 cents, I can't remember. I've tried to wipe those numbers out of my head.
Right.
Yeah, well, okay, so what people, I won't say this, and I get tired of saying this actually, but the Improve Act was the largest single tax cut bill ever passed in the state of Tennessee.
Okay, now explain that.
Wasn't it, Sam?
Tax cut?
It was the largest single tax cut bill in the history of the state of Tennessee.
Explain that.
We raised $248 million a year in revenue for transportation, right, and we cut about $500 million a year in taxes.
How much did spending go up?
Do what?
How much did spending go up in the same year?
For the state of Tennessee?
We'll open it up for questions here in a minute because we don't have a mic for you back there now. But that is creating another, $250 million a year of money to spend on roads and so forth?
The Improve Act did, yes.
How does that change what's going on in Williamson County?
Well, if you look at the Improve Act, there were some $400 million worth of projects that were identified in Williamson County over the next 10 or 12 years. Though I got to explain that a little. In fact, this might be a good time to do that.
Yeah.
So when we traveled around the state for 2 years, we put together, we asked, I had been doing it for a long time, advocating additional revenue for transportation. It had been since 1989 since we'd done anything with revenue for transportation in the state. Right. Lamar Alexander and then Ned McWhorter right after that. And the federal government hasn't touched it since 1993. And so we were in trouble and still are actually in trouble in trying to keep up our infrastructure with demands and also with how we maintain our infrastructure. And so when we went around the state and we identified projects, and we asked everybody. We met in Williamson County and we met across the state. Said, we have a pretty good idea of what needs to be done, but we want to hear from you. We want to know what projects are important to you. Right. So we created a list of 962 projects, a lot of bridges and a lot of off-system bridges. And what we mean by that is we inspect every bridge in the state of Tennessee. It's 19,500 bridges that we inspect, and we have to inspect them every 2 years to make sure that they're safe. and our bridges are safe across the state.
Right.
But we inspect, but some of them need repair and work, and so when you see a bridge that might need repair, it's not that it's not safe. It's just all of a sudden you might see a bridge that was built for 30 tons and it's now listed for 15 tons, or 20 tons and now it's listed for 10 tons, or whatever. So we reduce the weight capacity in order to make sure that they stay safe.
Right.
But there are a lot of bridges that are off-system that we aren't normally allowed to spend money off-system. We're only allowed to spend money on state-owned facilities, but we still inspect those bridges. So in Improve Act, and so there's a lot of bridges that need work, and the counties just didn't have counties and cities just didn't have the money to do that.
Right.
And so we put a whole bunch of bridges, 500 bridges in the Improve Act, that almost 2/3 of them are off-system. So we're going to be fixing bridges in counties and on county roads that need to be fixed as well. And so anyway, so when we put that all together, the first trip we made to the governor was, we need $550 million. We can build these projects. We can get every one of these projects in the Improve Act started within the first 10 years.
Okay.
Now, we're not finished. Some of these are long-term, big projects.
Right.
But we can get them started, and we can start working on them and moving through the process. And we can finish them in a reasonable time period. We thought within 15 years.
Right.
So we started with a little over 500 million, and we also said we need to index the revenue. So the first thing that happened, the first committee meeting we went to was, we're not indexing nothing. So that went out the window. And the governor didn't get a whole lot of positive feedback on the 500 million. And the next thing you know, we started reducing it. And so we settled on the number that ended up $245 million. And that's kind of where we are at the end of the third year. We haven't even got that money yet because we've staged we went to 4, 5, 6. And,
right.
And so we did it over 3 years, half of what we did. But the interesting thing through that whole process, we didn't cut a single project. So, Sam, you and I were just kind of having that conversation just a few minutes ago. So 962 projects. We thought we could get started in 10 years if we had over $500 million a year and it was indexed. We got $245 million a year and it's not indexed. Right. But we didn't change the project. So right. Y'all figure that out.
Okay,
you know?
In Williamson County, I understand 96 from here to Murfreesboro is going to be a, 5-lane as a result of
Correct.
The Improve Act.
Correct.
Northwest McHatcher is...
Northwest McHatcher is not in the Improve Act.
It's not in the Improve Act. Okay.
The Northwest is. I'm sorry. Southwest is not in the Improve Act. I'm directionally challenged.
Well, actually, I was doing a little homework last night and went to Spot.
Yeah. Which
is your website that shows all the projects that are in the 3-year plan. And I am thrilled to see that the southeast portion of McHatcher is on the 3-year plan now. Interestingly enough, the northwest section is not on the 3-year plan on Spot.
Well, we probably need to fix that, don't we?
No, let's leave it that way.
The southeast is on the 3-year plan. Okay, so here's, let's go through. So y'all, I'm really not directionally challenged. It's just early in the morning. So, you know, southeast, coming from Columbia Avenue over to 96.
Right. By Forest Crossing in there.
Is probably the worst section that we have and needs to be done.
Right.
No question about it. But there's a road there. The northwest side needs to be done. A lot of political pressure to get that one done, and you know, ultimately we might be able to finish that. And then the southwest side, where we do have a design laid out. In fact, we even changed just recently, kind of modified some stuff for some homeowners over there, and the city. We worked together on actually moving, slightly moving the layout of that road to help kind of some homeowners kind of do some stuff on that side. But that's a section that is not an Improve Act, but is going ultimately to be built, but behind the expansion of Columbia Avenue as
Right.
well. So, you know, the good thing about the southeast side is that, and this is what we're doing a lot these days, we're building a 2-lane road on a 4 or 5-lane right-of-way.
Right.
So that we buy the right-of-way, we get it in place, we build a 2-lane, which is what we're doing on the northwest side as
Right.
well. So we bought a right-of-way for a full 4-lane divided road, but we're only going to build 2 lanes until the time comes that that the capacity is there, we add 2 lanes. And it's a whole lot easier to do that and a lot quicker. We don't have to go through any environmental issues because we would have gone through the environmental process as well.
Right.
So it's kind of how we do that stuff.
We've got about 10 minutes to cover regional transportation.
Okay.
Nashville had a referendum on a sales tax increase May 1st, and that did not go well.
Yeah.
You're the statewide commissioner, so you have to look at it from the 30,000-foot level. How does metropolitan Nashville area, including Williamson County, how do we deal with traffic as this area continues to grow?
Okay, so you know, the transit plan for Nashville was just the transit plan for Nashville. So it had no bearing on regional traffic, and I think that might have been an issue with that. Though, you know, everybody and nobody outside Nashville got a chance to vote for it, so it wasn't going to help anybody. It was actually going down the main corridors in Nashville. But you know, the interesting thing is those are all state roads except for one little section of that. So you know, they had to get our approval in order to do what they were going to do. And interesting enough, no one ever asked us about that. and so we didn't weigh in either. We felt it advisable just to kind of sit on the outside and just see what happened and see where the chips fall, and then figured out what Nashville was going to do at that point in time. You know, and I can get really far out about transit. There's some, you know, there's a quote in the newspaper this morning and actually on the debate the other night that says you can't build your way out of congestion. And you know, you think about that, and a lot of people say, now again, Ken and his people don't like that idea, but
depends on how much money you've got.
Well, you know, no, you know, there are experts that say at some point there's like there's like an efficient frontier. There's like a point in a curve that where you reach the pinnacle and more of something doesn't help. And they say that in traffic. But I want to go back and give everybody an example. And right now, across the country and in the state of Tennessee, we use our interstates. We're running at about a 20% capacity on our interstates. Mm-hmm. Now think of that. I know nobody agrees. Nobody knows that. But you know why you don't know it? Because you're only on the interstates when everybody else is on the interstates. Because when you drive to work, you know, God, this traffic's terrible. But you know, we've got lots of capacity on highways. We're just not utilizing them very efficiently. And so I give this as an example. So if you own a hotel and you got a 100-room hotel and you're running about a 20% occupancy level, that means you're going to occupy 20 rooms a night. And then but you have to have your rooms have to be clean. You have to have food in the refrigerator in case you have those. In case something happens, you have to be ready. You have to cut the grass and all that kind. Got rid of the bed bugs. All those things you got to do, and because you want people to come. And then once every other week, you may have for one night you may have need for 120 rooms. Now, if you're a good businessman, are you going to build those 20 rooms for that one night every 20 days that you need to? No, you're not. And so and a lot of people.
So you want us to get up in the middle of the night and drive?
No. But here's an interesting factor, is that there's lots of opportunities to do a lot of things with what we have. And so, as an example, the state has really gone on into a different sort of work attitude. And we've been pushing a lot of it, but we have what's called AWS, Alternative Workforce Solutions, where now about 18% of our employees work at home. That's a big deal. And not only is it good for our roads, the state of Tennessee now has reduced its real estate footprint by 1 million square feet. So we are now occupying, and thanks to Governor Haslam, we're now occupying 1 million square feet less in office space than we did when he came in to office. That represents almost $20 million a year in rent that we're not paying because a lot of people are working at home. And we also now have been given the discretion in our departments to have flexible hours.
So will flexible hours fix Metropolitan Nashville's traffic problems?
Boy, it's a good start.
What else?
So the other thing is technology.
Okay.
Technology we're on the cusp of a complete change in how we move around in this country. And I have in my office a picture of, and I use it all the time, but I have two pictures. The first picture is of Fifth Avenue, New York City, Easter Sunday morning, 1900. Loaded with vehicles, just packed side to side. And it's big, it was big back then. So, it's 5, 6, they didn't have lanes, but, width of 5, 6 lanes. And every vehicle except one is being pulled by a horse.
So 1900.
I have a similar picture taken in 1913. Easter Sunday morning, Fifth Avenue, different location, but same thing. Loaded with vehicles, and every one of them has an engine, a steering wheel, rubber tires, accelerator, brake. 13 years.
13 years. And,
completely changed what happened in New York City and completely changed what happened in the world.
So what's going to happen in the next 13 years? We're
going to have the same change. So since 1913, it might be 20 years, it might be whatever. But, since the car was invented, it's not changed when you think about it. It still has a combustion engine, still has an accelerator, still has a brake, still has a steering wheel, 4 rubber tires.
Right.
And everything else on it's just kind of an amenity. It's an extra that we get. But the process is the same. The technology today is to get rid of those things, to get rid of the combustion engine, go to electric engine, to get rid of the steering wheel, get rid of the brake, get rid of the accelerator,
right,
and have a pod that that sounds funny. I've ridden in those pods.
Mm-hmm.
They're there. They work. But let's say, well, why would we want a computer to take over driving us from
right
over there? And we like to drive, and that's fun. But let's go back and talk about what we talked about originally, is that every day I get notification of 3 fatalities in the state of Tennessee. Last year, in estimates for 2017, we think there's somewhere between 38,000 to 40,000 people died in car wrecks in our country. It's the #1 killer of people in our country from 0 to 35. The #1 killer are car wrecks. 94% of those wrecks were caused by human error. 94%. And we see it every day. And while there have been some instances where technology, cars, Tesla, there's been an accident. One fatality in a Tesla accident in the last 2 years made front page news.
Right.
But, when you do 2 years, so you got 57,000 fatalities in conventionally driven cars didn't make the news.
Right.
So think of the lives that we could save in this country when we do that. So, and it's not far-fetched. It's there. I've probably ridden 20 hours in autonomous vehicles.
So that will not only make us safer, but those cars can drive closer together. So
Well, think of this. Okay, and Kent, we'll start with this. Kent has the same commute I have every day. Have you noticed in the last 3 or 4 days I haven't been in traffic? You know why? Kids aren't in school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 3 months out of the year, right now, we don't really have huge congestion issues. But also think about it, the only time in Nashville that we have congestion issues of huge magnitude is when there's a wreck.
Right.
If you turn on, if you look at the TDOT SmartWay app, or if you get on any of the channels and you see the TDOT cameras, if there are no wrecks, it's all green. And only time there's a wreck is when we have huge issues. So if we don't have wrecks to begin with, then we don't have issues. But then you take the next step in. We can get more capacity on those roads because those cars can drive closer together and they can drive faster. And you know what? They don't switch lanes. They just, they get in a lane, they just go. And if everybody's going the same speed and everybody knows what everything's happening, our opportunity to increase the capacity of the roads that we currently have is exponential.
Okay, I got one more question, and we need to open it up for questions from the audience. But the chamber takes trips every year to other cities to look at things going on there to see if there's any ideas that we can bring back. Went on the Denver trip a year or so ago, and a couple of things impressed me. This is Dave talking. And they had a lot of elevated roads out there, interstates, not over the top of each other, but a lot of elevated roads that in the past they've been pretty ugly, but they've learned how to make them fairly attractive now.
We've got quite a few of those too.
One of the, yeah, we do, interchanges. One of the gubernatorial candidates is proposing double stacking interstates in Nashville to improve the flow. Another thing we saw in Denver was a toll road. And I've always thought toll roads went off through the country and they built. In Denver, they've got a toll road right on the right of way, right beside the interstate, right inside the interstate. So could you combine those two ideas and let private money double stack interstates through Nashville, which could then be toll roads, express lanes?
Well, yeah, sure. The same guy that told me there was, the same guy that told me there's nothing too good for the fully leveraged also told me, you can solve almost any problem that you have. All you got to do is add money and stir. And yeah, so we could add money and stir, and but I don't think that's again, if you look at downtown Nashville, that's not our issue.
Getting to Nashville.
Well, getting on the interstate is tough, but again, and I drive it every day. I'm not saying we don't have we do have traffic. We know we have traffic, but it can be better managed, and adding money and stirring is not the solution. And know that, look, if we were to, I don't know how many billions of dollars that would cost, but it's plenty of bees. And so the only way to do that then is to borrow money to do it. There's no way to do it without borrowing money. And you build those roads for 40 to 50 to 60 years. The I-65 right over here was built in 1969 or 70. So, so we've added to it. But you've got to know that what we're doing now has to last for 50 or 60 years. Well, if we're changing how we drive and commute, do we want to spend that much money now on something that may be obsolete in 10 or 15 or 20 years? That was one of the questions that Nashville faced with their transit operation. was that they're going to spend $9 billion, and will that type of transportation be obsolete by the time they pay the debt off? And I, quite frankly, think the answer is yes to that. And so we have to be smarter in everything that we do in order to run the state as efficiently as we possibly can. And spreading out hours of work, having alternative workforce solutions, dealing with modern technology, all those things will prepare us for the future. And will there be some traffic? Well, yes. But isn't there traffic at the mall when you go there on Friday after Thanksgiving? But so you know, I mean, there is going to be some of that. But if you wanted a perfect world in transportation and never have any traffic, you'd have to. I don't know if you could even get there. So you have to manage what you have, and I think that's the state government's job, is to look to the future and manage the money that they have. And when you ask the citizens for additional money, you have to be responsible with it. You have to spend it in the right way. And I think the state of Tennessee does a great job at that. I really do.
I didn't spend time to point out all the things that have been done over the last 5 years, but we had a transportation summit this week, luncheon for the chamber, and the city of Franklin just presented all the projects that had just been completed in Franklin. And you forget about I-65 from 96 all the way to 840 and how big a difference that has made. It has made a big difference in congestion. Pavement did make a big difference, John.
Yeah, there's an efficient frontier. There's a point where you have the right amount of lanes, but when you get more than a certain amount, you're spending money to help a situation that's short term.
Yeah. And
do taxpayers want to spend that much money for an hour relief in the morning and the afternoon? You want to spend another $600 million from here to Nashville so that you can get to town 10 minutes earlier? Is that really a good use of taxpayers' money? I just don't think so. Leave a little bit later. Yep. Go a little bit earlier, and which is what I do. I don't. I know when the traffic. I don't go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to tell you when I go. I go to work at 8 o'clock. I don't go to work. I don't go home at 5 or 5:30.
Let's open it up for questions.
Okay.
And sir, you had a comment, question. Identify yourself and where you're from.
I'm Norman Bobo, south of Williamson. I'm in southern Williamson County. I live in Bethesda. And sorry about blurting out. Should have waited.
We hit your hot button. That's okay.
We started. I'm gonna set the tone for this comment because this is going across the state. This discussion is happening everywhere because we have state representatives and state senators that voted for that Improve Act. Some in this room, and I'm telling you, I was upset, really upset about it. And the reason why I was upset about it was not because I didn't want funding for roads. Absolutely wanted funding for roads. What I didn't want was a tax increase to do it, and we didn't need a tax increase. We had $2 billion sitting in our accounts. $2 billion, that's with a B, sitting in our accounts. And we raised taxes when we could have just paid for the transportation projects that were in the Improve Act. Now, let me tell you, everyone says it was a tax cut, and it was not a tax cut. And the reason we know that, and the reason why I asked that question that I asked earlier, was total state spending went up by over $1 billion. Some of that went into some of that $2 billion went into reserves. Some of it went to other programs, but the total spending went up by way over $1 billion.
So,
now hang on. Yeah, let me before you answer, I just want to make sure it's really clear.
Well, we only got 5 minutes.
I know, but I want to make sure it's really clear. Total spending went up.
Yeah.
That meant our taxes went up. It was not a tax cut. That money got spent.
The income that went up didn't come up from tax increases. It came up in growth. And so the growth in the state of Tennessee, you're going to have to let me talk. Okay? So the growth in the state of Tennessee funded the increase in the revenue that came to the state of Tennessee. And that's because we have so many people moving in, and they're buying things, and we have businesses, and the growth in businesses and job growth pays taxes. And I will tell you that the day after the governor signed the Improve Act, 3 large companies signed commitment letters to the state of Tennessee because they reduced the F&E taxes. So otherwise, they were going to go to other states, and those created almost 5,000 jobs for Tennesseans. So that's important, and a lot of those jobs were in rural Tennessee, where the unemployment is high, and it created stuff. And so you're paying $4 more a month at the gas station in order to help this state become more attractive to businesses in a lot of different ways. And also, we reduced taxes on groceries by 1%. So the net effect was we are able to fund transportation, and we're able to do it with, and it was a tax cut. And if you look at revenues, you will understand tax cuts, and you know, and I know we're going to disagree in that. And you know, I learned in statistics. My statistics teacher once said, you know, liars figure and figures lie. And so, you know, you can pretty much substantiate anything you want to substantiate, and you can say the same thing about what we're saying with the numbers and the facts. So it was right for the state of Tennessee. It has not had any negative impact on the state. In fact, it has a positive impact. We are still, we tax our people the least per capita than any state in the nation. We also have the least amount of debt than any state in the nation. We haven't borrowed money at all in the state of Tennessee for 24 months. We have almost got our pension fund fully funded because of that extra money that we have. It went to fund the pension fund. We also have got a rainy day fund that's almost $1 billion, so we can travel through the recession, the next one we have, and keep jobs. It was the right thing to do, and you know, I just think you're wrong on that.
Sam Whitson, our state representative, has a comment.
Yes, and I agree with the commissioner on that, and I just got to tell you, because I call it being recession ready, and you hear about this $2 billion, that includes our rainy day fund, and I tell you what, the good times are not going to last. And if we don't have our rainy day fund there, we don't keep our AAA bond rating, we are going to hurt the kids coming down the road. So I tell you what, and Ronald Reagan, in his radio address in 1982, said the fuel tax is the fairest user fee that you can have. He supported it then, and I supported it now.
We've got an hour's worth of questions, and we got 3 minutes, John. I'm sorry, I would love to open it up for questions, but we've got 3 minutes, and we've got a lot of people to thank for all that went on. John, tough job, a lot of decisions to make, and we just appreciate you taking an hour and visiting with us. Wish we had another hour to talk about these other issues and talk about all the specific projects that are going on in this county. But if you would give John a hand, we appreciate him. I've got, like I said, at least another hour's worth of material I would like to talk about, and I know the audience has several things they would like to discuss if you've got a little more time.
I got a plumber coming to my house at 9 o'clock, but that gives me like 15 minutes. In the real world, we have real problems. Plumbing isn't it?
It's you just have. We'll do that. Just want to Kel McDowell come here and tell us a little bit about the upcoming elections and what we need to do about that.
Absolutely. So early voting is upon us. July 13th through the 28th is early voting for the Williamson County general elections and the party primaries for state and federal offices. Registration deadline to participate is July 3rd, and the election day itself is August 2nd. What's nice is from July 23rd to 28th, Columbia State, right here where we are right now, is an early voting site. So I encourage all of you, if you're not registered yet, please register and please vote as well. And thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Kel. Kel's our Chamber Government Affairs Director, and he's doing a great job. And Kel, we appreciate your helping coordinate this. Matt, you made a great hire there. Good job. Just want to thank the Emblem Apartments. They provide us with coffee and pastries every time we do this, and they're some delightful people. You need to get to know them, and if you know anybody's looking for an apartment in the Cool Springs area, they're the ones to talk to first, right? And thank you so much to Vanderbilt for helping make this happen. AT&T as well as Aspen Grove Asset Management makes sure all these TV and radio connections happen. So much appreciate the staff, the chamber staff that helps put all this together. The logistics they surprise me every time we do this. Hope that you all will come back next month. We will announce a guest here soon, but just looking forward to having you back. Appreciate Columbia State for letting us have the facility, and look forward to being back next month. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.